Okay, something else you should have covered last year, but again, just a refresher this year to get us ready for the ongoing chapter, is yesterday we added and subtracted integers. Today we're multiplying and dividing. The tricky part about it is you don't want to get the rules mixed up. So when it comes to multiplying and dividing, okay, you pay attention to the signs, just like we do with adding, subtracting, but it follows different rules. So whether you are multiplying or dividing by two positives, a positive times a positive or a positive divided by positive, your answer is going to be positive. If you are dividing or multiplying by two negatives, so a negative times a negative or a negative divided by negative, that is also positive. And then the other side of that is if you multiply a positive and a negative or a negative and a positive, whichever order, it makes it a negative. Now, a nice little visual for that, in case you forget those rules, is there's different ones. So if you're not familiar with this one or if you have your own, let me know. But otherwise, we have this symbol right here. You might have seen it last year. A quick little visual is you have a positive sign at the top and two negatives in the bottom. Kind of looks like a face with a hat, like these are his eyes and this is his hat. But if you look at it, here's how that works. So for instance, it's kind of like a cover up. Hold on. Sorry, all my pencils are depleted. Let's see, there we go. Okay, so for instance, if I have, nope, yeah. Okay, so positive and positive you're familiar with doing just equaling a positive, but if you do a negative times a negative, then you also end up in a positive. If you do a positive and a negative, then you end up with a negative. So it's kind of like a visual of like what you do whenever you multiply or divide those signs. But either way, you have to know your multiplication facts to help you here. Otherwise, let's get going. So number one, first things first. You see, it looks like a fraction, so it's not always going to be a division sign, but a fraction is just division. And let's first pay attention to our signs. What signs do we have in the numerator? A negative. What do you have in the denominator? A positive. So what does a negative and a positive make when you're dividing? A negative. So I know my answer is going to be negative something. Now you just do the division. So our answers are going to be nice and pretty for this day, but we're going to get into where we're going to see decimals and fractions down the road. What is 24 divided by 12? That is 2. So my answer is -2. First off, look at your signs. It's multiplication, so it's a negative and a positive. A negative times a positive is also a negative. And then you multiply. What's 11 times 9? 99. So -99. Here we have a negative and a negative. When you have a negative times a negative, it's a positive, and then it's 7 times 12. So lots of ways to go about multiplication as far as if you know some number sense skills, or if you have you want to go off to the side and do 12 times 7 like you've done in the past. That's one way to do it. So if I go the traditional route, I get positive 84. Okay, another way you can break this up if you kind of have a sense of that is think of 12 as 10 and 2. So if you know these facts quicker, 7 times 10 is 70, and 7 times 2 is 14. So when I add 70 and 14 together, I get 84. So kind of a mental math check if you want. Number 4. So a positive and a negative makes a negative. 12 divided by 3 is -4. A positive and a negative make a negative. 4 times 6 is 24. So those multiplication facts really help as far as like speed and accuracy. Number 6, positive and a positive make a positive. 48 divided by 6, which is probably one of the toughest to remember, is 8. A negative and a negative make a positive. 120 divided by 20 is 6. Sorry. And a way to do division mentally is, especially here, whenever you have 2 zeros, so a 0 in the ones place like that, you can technically zero them out, cancel them out, and do -12 divided by -2, and that is 6. Same thing, but it only applies if they have zeros in the ones positions and how many zeros they have in common. Just a kind of little trick there. Negative and a negative make a positive. What does that dot mean as an alternative to multiplication? So what's 5 times 9? 45. Number 9, 72 divided by -4. Positive and a negative make a negative. If I want to do mental division, so let's do the traditional route. Remember, 72 in the house, 4 in the outside. 4 goes into 7 once with the remainder of 3. You bring down the 2 in the ones position. 4 goes into 32 18 times. A way to do, I guess, what you can say sideways is division is the same thing. I see, like, mentally right here, 4 goes into 7 one time. Mentally, I have a remainder of 3, so it goes in front of the 2. And then 4 goes into 32 18 times. So kind of a mental way to do that without the basic algorithm. 9 and negative 7 is a negative because positive and negative. It is multiplication, and 9 times 7 is 63. Negative and a negative make a positive. 20 divided by 2 is 10. When I have more than one, just like we saw yesterday with adding and subtracting, you want to go, and they're both multiplication, make sure you go from left to right. So 6 times negative 5 is negative 30, because positive and negative. I'm going to bring down that times 3, and negative 30 times 3 is negative 90, because a negative times a positive is negative. A negative and a negative make a positive. 9 times 3 is positive 27. Okay, let's try the mental math here, just for kicks. 65 and 5 is positive, because a positive and a positive equals a positive. 5 goes into 6 one time with a remainder of 1, so I carry it to the 5 for 15, and 5 goes into 15 3 times with no remainder. So my answer is 13. It's the same thing as if I were to go off to the side and do the division, long division like you're used to doing. Same process. 15, 12 times 12. So I have positive and positive, which is positive. 12 times 12, if you know your multiplication facts up to that point, is 144. But if I need to go off to the side, like you would normally do multiplication. Another way you can do it is split the second 12 into 10 and 2. So 12 goes times 10 is 120. And then 12 times 2 is 24. So when you add 120 and 24, you get 144. So lots of ways and options to do. What does it mean when you have parentheses that are side by side like that? That means also multiplication. So lots of ways you can see multiplication. A negative times a positive is a negative. 5 times 4 is 20. Negative and a negative is also a positive. 66 divided by 6 is 11. And of course, you can go off to the side and do long division, or you can do mental division. 6 goes into 6 one time, no remainder. And then 6 goes into 6 one more time, no remainder. Multiplication again, negative times a negative is a positive. 10 times 7 is 70, so positive 70. If I look at 75 divided by negative 15, positive divided by negative is a negative. 75 divided by 15, again, just maybe one of those you do mental math off to the side. 15 doesn't go into 7, it goes into 75, 4, 5 times. So 15 times 5 is exactly 75. And then you think about, so negative 5, because positive, negative. Now, if you want to do somewhat mentally, you think about 15 increment jumps. So you have 15, then you have 30, then you have 45, then you have 60, then you have 75. Going by 15s, how many jumps was that? 1, 2, 4. Yeah, sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then positive times negative is negative. 8 times 6 is 48. And so negative 48. Let's see where we could see this in some word problems, just like we saw with adding and subtracting. Always be on the lookout for words that mean multiply and divide. Okay, it says Nina made 8 withdrawals from her bank account. Each withdrawal was for $20. What was the total change in her bank account? So 8 withdrawals. So if you were drawing a mental picture, it's like saying 8 circles, if you will. Okay, and each withdrawal was $20. So you think about, and each circle was $20 amounts. So what do you think the operation is? Multiplication or division? In this case, it would be multiplication. Now you can add $20 8 times or 20 times 8, but here's the kicker. I didn't pay attention to what they were saying. It says 8 withdrawals. So that means she took out, she took out $8 from her bank account. Or sorry, $20 from her bank account each time she withdrew. Withdrawal means normally take out. So in this context, I could see it being either positive or negative in this case, but since we're asking what is her amount in her bank account, we don't have, we're assuming she has nothing there. She took out negative $20 every single time. So negative times a positive is negative. 20 times 8 is 160. After 8 hours of snow, the temperature had changed by a total of negative 16. What was the average temperature in each hour while it was snowing? So after 8 hours, the temperature had changed by a total of negative 16. So it went down 16. But they want to know what was the average change each hour, okay? In that case, that means I need to know how many degrees it went down in the first hour, and the second hour, and the third hour, up until the 8th. Well, what do you think that means as far as multiplication or division? In this case, it would be division. So I'm going to figure out, if I have negative 16 degrees, I have to figure out how many degrees it goes within 8 hours. I divide negative divided by positive, which is negative, and 16 divided by 8, which is 2. That means it dropped 2 degrees every single hour until it got to negative 16. A skier descended a mountain at a rate of 14 feet per second. What was the total change in elevation after 8 seconds? Well, all I know is 8 seconds went by, and it descended at a mountain rate of 14 feet per second. Descended means it goes down, so 14 is negative. And it was per second, and I know that there are 8 seconds, so per normally means multiplication. So 14 times 8. A negative times a positive is a negative, and 14 times 8, I can go off to the side and do my logarithm if you want. I can split up 14 into 10 and 4. So 8 times 10 is 80, and 8 times 4 is 32. And when I add that up, is 112, which I would get the same answer by doing multiplication. The Tigers, a high school football team, lost 3 yards on each of their 3 plays. So each play, they lost 3 yards. Lost means negative. And for each play, which there were 3 total plays, what was their total change in yards? Negative 3 times 3, negative times negative is negative, or negative times positive is negative, and 3 times 3 is 9. So he lost a total of 9 yards. Andrew's bank account changed by negative $50 after making 4 equal withdrawals. How much was each withdrawal? So this one's similar to the snow up here. He knows he lost negative $50 after 4 equal withdrawals, but I don't know how much each withdrawal was. So I'm going to divide by 4. Negative divided by positive is negative. 50 divided by 4 is 15. Now I did that more or less mentally. 4 goes into 5 one time with the remainder of 1. So it's going to be, it's going to be decimal. 4 goes into 10 2 times with the remainder of 2. 4 doesn't go into 2 evenly, but it goes into 20 5 times. So he lost $12.05. So this is our first decimal. My apologies. 1 4. Yeah. Interesting. All right, a well is being dug into the ground. The well needs to reach a depth of 120 feet. A machine can dig down that far in 12 minutes. What is the change in depth each minute in the machine is digging? Okay, so he needs to reach a depth, which is negative 120 feet. A machine can dig down that far in 12 minutes. What is the change in depth each minute the machine is digging? And so I have to figure out how much each minute, which means I have to divide by 12. If I do negative divided by positive, it's negative. 12 goes into 120 10 times. Due to erosion, a beach is disappearing at a rate of negative 5 feet per year. How long will it take for the beach to lose 85 feet? So here, the beach is disappearing at a rate of negative 5 feet per year. How long? So it wants to know how many years it will take to lose 85 feet. So it is going to be division, figuring out how much per year, and then divide by negative 5. Positive divided by negative is negative. 85 divided by 5 is 17, because mentally what I do is 5 goes into 8 one time with the remainder of 3, and then 5 goes into 35 with the times 7, so 7 times. The amount of water in a lake decreased by 12.8 feet over the last 4 weeks. How much did the water level change by week? So the amount of water in a lake decreased by 12.8 feet. Ooh, there's a decimal, sorry. Over the last 4 weeks, how much did the water level change by each week? So just like the last few, I have to figure out per week, so I have to divide by 4. Now, of course, we won't see decimals today, but it's good practice for context. And so 12.8 divided by 4 is positive, so my answer is a positive. 12.8, if I do my mental division, 4 does not go into 1, but it goes into 12 3 times. And then with no remainder, because of the decimal, I bring it down. 4 goes into 8 2 times. So the average change per week was 3.2. So just some context there for you.